You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you're not able to execute on it and follow through, then it's not going to matter with mindset blocks. If you work through these things, you get to have strong confidence, strong self-belief, and get your subconscious mind on board so that it aligns with your conscious goals.
Welcome to the Process to Profit podcast, where we find out about key processes and productivity techniques that drive successful service-based businesses. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale, join us as we uncover practical strategies to streamline your operations and help you make more money by boosting your profitability. Let's get started. My guest today is Diana Grace. Diana is an identity and business mindset coach and hypnotherapist on a mission to help people up-level their identity and become magnetic to clients and money. Diana, thank you so much for being here today, and I'm sorry that I didn't even attempt to pronounce your real last name because I would butcher it.
Thank you so much for having me, and no problem at all.
You could pronounce it for everyone if you'd like, so that at least understand why I didn't even try.
Yeah, my last name is Björkau.
That didn't even give that one a try, so because I knew that I would butcher it and be offensive. So, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Norway this evening. One of my favorite places in the world. I'm very jealous that you get to live there.
Well, yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, so why don't we start by you telling everyone a little bit more about sort of what you do, who you help, all of those good things.
Yes, definitely. As you said, I'm an identity and business mindset coach. So I help female entrepreneurs and especially coaches and online service providers with really stepping into their most powerful identity where they can be as confident as possible and really, really amplify their voice so that they can make a huge impact on the world. And we really do that, especially through mindset work, especially through the subconscious rewiring work, because 95% of our thoughts and behavior is derived from the subconscious mind. So we really get down to business with our minds and with my clients.
Okay, great. That sounds fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about the subconscious mind and what you mean by that? Because people probably have heard the term, but don't necessarily know what that actually means.
Yes, definitely. So we have the conscious mind and we have the subconscious mind. Both are parts of our brain and how we kind of think. So when we say, for example, I have this goal, I want to get to 10K months, for example, that's your conscious mind speaking. You're consciously desiring that goal, right? But then you have your subconscious mind, which is very much connected to your nervous system. It's connected to all of the patterns that you've built throughout your whole life. And so it's the behavior that you're not so much aware of and controlling. And so you're kind of maybe working on autopilot throughout your life. And that is because your subconscious mind is at play. So I hope that made sense. But very often when you have a conscious goal and you don't reach that goal, it is because your subconscious mind is not on board and you're maybe even self-sabotaging because it's triggering something in your nervous system. And it's triggering it feels like danger to your nervous system.
Let's dig a little bit more into that. So how can your subconscious mind really sabotage that for you? What is it doing to you or to your conscious mind that is preventing you, causing these limiting beliefs for what it is that you're trying to achieve?
Yes. So we all have so many limiting beliefs and fears at play so much of the time. And again, some of them we can be aware of and some of them we can not be aware of. And that's where the self-sabotage happens. So some limiting beliefs that are very common for entrepreneurs are beliefs like, for example, the market is too saturated. I don't have enough followers to launch a certain product or a certain way. I'm afraid that if I share this opinion, that people will unfollow, ghost me, disagree with me, etc. So if you have those kinds of limiting beliefs, then that is triggering something inside of you, right? Like a fear, a certain reaction where you're like, okay, if this were to happen, then I don't want to really fully believe in myself and really fully go after that goal. Because what if that happens and I fail? Then all of these consequences are going to happen. So you pull back, you maybe do something called micro quitting, and then you just don't succeed after all. But it wasn't because of some external factor. It was because you had those subconscious blocks inside of you.
So, if you have these subconscious blocks and they are subconscious, how can entrepreneurs recognize that that is what is holding them back, that they are having these sort of limiting beliefs without maybe realizing that that's what the problem is?
Yes. So that can be hard in the beginning because you have to first become aware of them before you can do anything about them, right? So the first thing is to be like, okay, if you can hear those kinds of statements and you can relate, then you know, okay, maybe I do actually have a subconscious block at play here. So the first thing would be to listen to podcasts like this and go watch videos about subconscious blocks that are normal for people to experience, right? Like that's the first step to become aware. And then you can just ask yourself and get really, really, really honest with yourself. Why didn't I reach that certain goal, for example? What was it that really prevented me from doing that? And you should be so, so honest with yourself there and really drop the ego and drop the shame. Because a lot of the time people will, for example, just go to, like I said, the external factors and be like, oh, it was the algorithm. Oh, it was because people don't want to pay that much money in this certain time because of everything that happens in the world and all of that, right? So people often like to blame external factors, but when you get really, really honest with yourself and look within, you can see, okay, maybe it was something within me that triggered a fear. And so you start becoming aware of them, you start noticing that. And then you can do, for example, shadow work, which is something that I do with my clients, and really like talk to your shadow and start rewiring those beliefs and let go of those blocks.
So, tell me more about shadow work because I've heard the term before, but I don't know that I've ever dug in to see kind of what that means and what it looks like. So, explain to us a little bit about what that is and what it looks like and how you work with your clients that way.
Yes. So shadows is something that everyone has. We all have the parts of ourselves that we very often are not conscious about again. And those are the parts that we normally don't want other people to see. So we can, to some extent, be conscious of them, but we are ashamed of them. For example, we feel some sort of guilt around those kinds of traits. And we just don't want people to find out that that is a part of us. So let's take an example. Something that I mention as an example because it's very relatable is that, let's say, for example, you as a child you were just a normal child. You were just playing, having a lot of fun, and sometimes you were a bit noisy. And then your parents were maybe like, you have to be quiet. You have to not take up so much space. And so you heard that again and again and again and again, and you started internalizing that. And then you started shaming that part of you that wanted to be loud, that wanted to take up space growing up. And so that followed you into teenage years, into adulthood. And when you were with friends, you didn't really want to take initiative. When you were in a meeting, you didn't really want to speak up because what if your opinion was stupid? When you're in a relationship, you don't want to be the one to choose what dinner to have, for example, because all of that is pointing to your need for not being too much and not being taking up too much space. So, if someday someone says to you, "You have so many opinions, don't you? Like, you have so much to say," then that person probably didn't have the intention to hurt you. It was just a harmless comment, right? But then that pointed to a shadow that you have, and you're so focused on not being too much, and then it feels to your nervous system like someone just unmasked you, someone just shed a light on your shadow, and that feels like danger. And so then you internalize that or you lash out and then you feel shame all over again. So that's just one way, like one type of shadow that can be at play. And how I work on this with my clients is that we go through what kind of different shadows that could show up in their business and when they're trying to market themselves, for example, where the shadow that I just mentioned is a very common one. And then we look at, okay, what are you really afraid of here? And what is the worst thing that can happen? And what's what is the message that your shadow is trying to give you? And this is very related to inner child healing work, like they can be very intertwined. And so once you get that message from within yourself, then you see that, okay, it was just trying to make me feel safe, but it's okay because I have this conscious goal that I'm trying to reach. I don't no longer need for it to keep me safe. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna handle it no matter what. And so we work through those things. We bust the limiting beliefs and we rewire them to be more empowering, and so that you can actually reach your goals.
That sounds intense. It sounds like you're really working through some really intense experiences, intense feelings with people. How does hypnotherapy sort of fit in? Because I know that you're a hypnotherapist. So how does that fit into this process? And is that something that can be done remotely? Is that something that you do in person with clients? What does that look like and how does it fit in?
Yes. So to answer your last question first, we can do both, but I mostly do remotely actually. Um, I when I talk about shadow work and those kinds of things, that is very kind of proactive. You're taking active work, and that's more when you have very strong limiting beliefs that you're trying to work on, if that makes sense. Whereas with hypnosis, that is when we can do some of the same things, but it's more if you have some kind of fears and you have some kind of desired outcome, a transformation that you're trying to reach or achieve, then I am kind of helping you reinstate new empowering beliefs through the hypnosis so that it can be repeated to your brain on a deeper level so that new neural pathways can be formed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We see, at least in the US, we see hypnosis as more of like a TV gag where they're pretending to hypnotize people a lot of the times and creating those subconscious triggers and things. How is it different when you're working with clients and business owners? Like what does real hypnosis look like as opposed to those maybe joke hypnotists we've seen on TV and at those variety shows, maybe on a cruise ship somewhere? What does real hypnosis look like for you?
I'm so glad that you asked because what you just mentioned is called stage hypnosis and it's not a real thing. It's just for the gags. So hypnosis, like actual hypnosis and hypnotherapy is very different because it's not magic. It's rooted in science. It is when, how can I say it? You're just giving suggestions to the person who is under hypnosis, and the person that is getting hypnotized is kind of actually hypnotizing him or herself based on your suggestions. So when I do hypnosis on someone, I guide them into a trance. And trance can sound scary to some people, but as a matter of fact, we get into a trance state every single day, several times a day. Like you can think of, for example, if you're driving a car and you're driving the same kind of route every single day, and so you have it very much on autopilot in your system. You no longer think about what you should do, where you should turn, all of that. And so, and then you suddenly are like, "Oh, I'm here. What happened?"
I don't even
And you're
remember driving here. Yes, that happen
right.
all the time.
Exactly. Then you were kind of in a trance state. And also, if you're reading a really good book and you're so immersed in that and you're like just time is passing by and you have no idea how much time had passed by, then again you're in a trance state. So when you're in a trance state during hypnosis, you're just in a really, really, really relaxed state. It's called the delta state, delta brainwaves. And when you're in that state, it just means that your conscious part, the conscious part of your mind, is kind of quote unquote put to sleep. Like it's not as there. And then your subconscious mind can move forward and actually um be rewired so much easier. Yeah. So that is kind of what happens. So when I'm doing hypnosis, like I'm just giving them a space to be really relaxed, and then we have something called a deepener where I like count down from 10 to 1, and they get even more and more and more relaxed. And when they are in that such relaxed state, then that is when I give suggestions that are empowering. And also I want to mention that what you see on stage, where you can see that people are like, it looks like there are suddenly chickens walking around on stage. That is not possible because you will still have so much control when you're in trance. You can, whenever you want, just get out of trance and you can stop it. Some people think that they're gonna reveal their deepest, darkest secrets. That's also not possible. You're always in control, and you're just in a very relaxed state where your mind will be easier rewired, but in an empowered way.
This is so fascinating to me because
And
I've never really dug into this, so I'm really enjoying learning about it. What kind of results have you been able to see from both your shadow work with people and the hypnosis with people? Are they, suddenly super successful and they're making millions of dollars? Are they, going on TV and selling their products? Like what are the results that you're seeing from these kinds of treatments?
yeah, I've seen some amazing transformations with the shadow work, especially I've seen especially people who are suddenly thriving so much more in their relationships because now they can understand themselves on a deeper level. And instead of just lash out and nag on their husbands all the time, for example, they can see, okay, what is actually going on here and regulate themselves first and then go to their husband and have a real conversation and both come out so much better out of that conversation. So that's one. And people are also just becoming so much more confident in their marketing and in their sales and showing up in their business, where they actually feel that they can share their honest opinions without constantly being afraid that people will cancel them and unfollow them. So, so it's huge for business and life in general. And with hypnosis, it's so cool. um, I both help people in business, and like in life in general. And some of the coolest life transformations that I've seen was I have a client who was biting her nails for her whole life. She has been trying to stop so many times. She tried all the different kind of tricks and tools, and even the thing that you put on your nails that tastes like crap. Like everything. She tried everything. Nothing stuck. And then one session with me and she stopped. And it has been over 2 months now. I think it's close to 3 months and still no nail biting. And she actually enjoys quality time with her daughter now, painting her nails, and her nails have gotten so
Aw.
long. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And a client also, like through again one hypnosis session, her tics dramatically reduced. She used to have so much tension in half of her face, where she could actually see wrinkles started forming because of the tics, and she had so much pain. And then after just a few weeks of listening to the same track a couple of times, she no longer could feel the pain. She no longer could see the wrinkles. Like there was a noticeable difference. And when it comes to business, people have also started signing clients and seeing money after weeks, months, and even over a year of silence. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, that does sound pretty amazing. As
Yeah.
someone who used to suffer from biting my nails, I understand that affliction. I did Invisalign. That's the only reason I have nails now. I physically
Oh,
couldn't bite them anymore. Getting off subject. So so those sound like some amazing results. Something else that you talk about a lot with your clients is manifestation. And how does manifestation sort of tie in to the shadow work and the hypnosis? Does it tie in, or is it sort of a separate thing? Tell us a little bit about what it is and sort of how it ties into the work that you're doing with your clients.
it does tie in because when we do manifestation, well, there are many ways to do manifestation, but a big way is to visualize, right? Because when you can see the desired outcome, then not only can that increase motivation and some clarity in what you're trying to achieve, but the interesting thing is that what you can visualize in your brain takes that as it has already happened. It cannot sense the difference between what has happened and what hasn't happened if you can visualize it. So it's the same with hypnosis. When you're in a hypnosis in a trance state and you're being guided through a hypnosis, then you're being guided through a visualization as well. So in that during that hypnosis, then you're like really feeling that this has already happened, and so it will be so much easier for you to reach your goals so much faster. And that is kind of a manifestation. Shadow work is linked to that because when you are trying to reach a goal, then you're maybe having some mindset blocks, some limiting beliefs and fears that are rooted in your shadows. So once you do the shadow work and you get some of them out of the way, then you're not feeling that you're like driving your first gear all of the time. You're actually creating some momentum and you're getting up the pace and you're able to reach your goals so much faster. So it's all connected.
It sounds like it. So it's interesting. We talk a lot about work life balance here on the show. And
Mhm.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how all of the work that you do with clients can sort of contribute to that work life balance and helping people build a business that they love, that they enjoy, and that supports their life in that they want to live as opposed to just working to live. So, tell us a little bit about how working through these things can help them create that work life balance and achieve that bigger vision that they have for their life.
Such a great question. I am such a big proponent. Is that what you say? Like, such a
Mhm.
big fan for
Yeah,
work-life
proponent. Yep,
balance.
fan. That was
Yeah.
right.
Okay, good. Like, that is so, so, so important to me. And like I've always been a fan of that, but for me in the start of my business journey for a very long time, although I wanted work-life balance, I felt like I had to just hustle 24/7 and work uh, like my butt off all the time. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that it's 80% mindset and 20% strategy. Like you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you're not able to actually execute on it and follow through for a long period of time, then it's not going to matter with all of those mindset blocks. So if you get to work through these things and you get to have really strong confidence, really strong self belief, and get your subconscious mind on board so that it aligns with your conscious goals, then it's so much easier to have that work life balance because then you're not constantly overthinking and ruminating about all of your decisions and what you should or shouldn't do, what other people might think, how you're comparing your success to other people, for example. And if you're in a launch, for example, like, oh my God, nobody signed up. What if this is going to fail and all of that? So through those kinds of things, through that kind of work, you can't let your mind rest. You can actually, when you stop working, you can actually also stop working in your mind. And so I think that is something that so many people can relate to, that maybe they have a boundary for themselves that they will stop working after a certain time, but they will continue working in their mind. So through this work, they can actually get the balance that they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's the dream, isn't it? Actually achieving the work-life balance, which looks different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
What are some techniques that people can try at home to sort of replicate the same? I mean, I know it's not the same as working with a professional, but what are some things that people can try to implement to start doing some of this work, to start, some shadow work or some, obviously they probably can't hypnotize themselves, or maybe they can, I don't know. What are some things that people can start doing at home on their own?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can hypnotize yourself, but you should know what you're doing then. So that's a good idea to start with. But shadow work, you can definitely do that on your own. There you can just even Google shadow work prompts and start there. And there are so many good ones. And just when you start there and you start becoming aware of what shadow work actually is, then you can start asking yourself on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, okay, what is this really about? And the more you become aware, the more you will do it on autopilot throughout your life, kind of. So that is the easiest way to start, I think. And like I said, with the fears and limiting beliefs, like what am I so afraid of here? And how is this actually hindering me in reaching my goals? What is it that and also a good question to ask yourself is actually, what is the hidden benefit of me not reaching this goal? So, for example, let's say, for example, you want to become a millionaire, and then you might have many mindset blocks for reaching that. And a hidden benefit of not reaching that might be, for example, you might be afraid that if you get to that point, then you will have to get a bigger team that you have to manage. And you're afraid that you're not going to be able to do that. Or maybe you're afraid that you don't have super solid systems in your business. And so you will be super overwhelmed when you reach that point, for example. Or maybe you're afraid that your partner will think that you've become too powerful and then they will want to leave you. So there could be so many subconscious sneaky beliefs at play. And so what I would ask yourself is really what is the benefit of me not reaching this, and what can happen when I work through these blocks. So I would start there.
Yeah, and then you were talking about it is possible to hypnotize yourself. So how would someone do that? Should they do that? What does that look like?
I would say you should definitely take a course in that first if you want to do that for yourself. But I mean, there are many tracks online, on YouTube, for example. I would be careful because you never know like what people put into those kinds of things, and you there have been some controversy around something called binaural beats, for example. I don't know. Do you know what binaural beats is?
No, no.
It's those are tracks where you can just hear some like music, and then someone has programmed affirmations to be what is it called, like on sub the music, so that you can't actually hear the affirmations, you can just hear the music. And so the thought is that it will be even easier to penetrate your subconscious mind, and that can be done for good, but you can also be not always so sure about what people have programmed in, right? It's not necessarily as risky when it comes to hypnosis tracks, because you can actually listen through and hear that it's okay. But I would still be careful about like where you get your hypnosis tracks from. So the best way is to go to an actually hypnotist or hypnotherapist, but like look up your sources there.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. What's the benefit of working with someone like you for this kind of work as opposed to going on Google and finding, shadow work prompts or going on YouTube? What value do you bring outside of what they can maybe find on Google?
Yeah. So of course, like you're not going to be sure when you search on Google necessarily that if they have taken a course, if they have actually worked with clients and stuff. Like I have worked with clients, I've seen results with clients, and that has been amazing. And so I'm using that experience to help forward, right? And if people want to come to me for tailored specific sessions, then I will have a consultation with them and they will tell me about what their challenges are, what their desired outcome is, and all of that. And I will not only listen to that and program that into the script, but also I will listen to their language so that I can use their language in the script so that their subconscious mind actually accepts it to a higher degree. So it will be very tailored, and I will then do a session with them or just record the track and send it to them so that it will be an even higher success rate.
That sounds much better than finding some rando on Google and using whatever it is that they've listed. Well, Diana, thank you so much for being here. If you could leave our listeners with one last piece of advice, either reiterating something you've already said or something new, what would that be?
Ooh, I have to think about that one. Something that I say a lot is I just I highly suggest for people to look beyond what everyone is saying on Instagram in marketing in general, where it's always about the strategy, it's always about the messaging, about the positioning. And those are incredible skills to learn. But like I said, it's 80% mindset and 20% strategy. Once you have the strategy down, you have to look at your mindset and where you are holding yourself back. So I really encourage people to surrender to there being something beyond what they're already used to hearing all the time, and put their ego down and get to work on their mindset because they will see success so much faster that way.
Great advice for everyone to listen to, myself probably included in that. Thank you so much for being here. If people want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
The best way to reach out to me is definitely on Instagram. I spend most of my time there.
What's your username? I'll put it in the show notes, but just so
Yeah.
everybody hears it.
Yeah, it's dianagrace.co. Can't even
Okay.
pronounce my own name.
Well, it's late there, so, I
Yeah.
understand. I will make sure that I put that in the show notes and in the YouTube description, and then I think you had a free gift for our listeners and viewers?
Yes, definitely. I have a whole free workshop out there that is called the Ultimate Manifestation Workshop for Beginners. So, like, it's for beginners, but there's a ton of value in there. All from what is manifestation, why hasn't it worked already for you, and what are some common things that people miss, and like why it failed for them. And there's EFT tapping in there, and there's a powerful visualization activation in there as well. So a lot of value in that free workshop.
All right, great. And I will make sure to include that in the notes as well. Again, thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot, and I think our listeners and viewers did as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this conversation with you.
Yes. And thank you all so much for listening and watching. And if you want to get in touch with Diana, you can do that at the information in the show notes. And I will talk to you all again soon. Bye.